Hey guys, welcome to the channel, welcome back to the vlog. It's me Hamza, and in today's video I'm gonna answer a question that some of you have asked me, and that is, could you do a review of the SLS? And I believe there's no better person to do an honest review of this Mercedes SLS. And the reason is because this is my 2012 Mercedes SLS, and it has been my dream car for as long as I can remember. Now, I've dreamt of owning a Mercedes SLS since 2011 or 2010, whenever it came out. And I was lucky enough to be able to buy one in the spec that I love. This car, I bought it to be daily driven. Now, a lot of these actually don't get daily driven, so I don't know if I would call those reviews very honest, but my review is going to be super honest because I daily drive my SLS. Now, things I like about the SLS, just off the top, before we get in and drive the car. Of course, the biggest reason is the gull-wing doors, right? The gull-wing doors are definitely something that stand out, that pop out. And for me, that was a primary reason that I fell in love with this vehicle and that I eventually ended up buying the car. The gull-wing doors are a head turner wherever you go, wherever you are. Once those doors open up, which I'm going to show you in just a second, people are going to start looking. It doesn't matter if there's an Aventador or a Huracan or whatever it is, any other exotic vehicle next to this car. Once those doors open up, it changes everything. Now, as you guys can see, this is a GT vehicle, which is something that I really love. I love sitting in the far back of the car, being able to look at that massive hood and drive it and enjoy it. Now, the way I got this car and the specs that it has, of course, you know that you can't buy this car brand new, so it's very difficult to be satisfied with speccing this vehicle. Now, lucky for me, it's specced almost exactly how I would have specced it had I bought it from the factory, and that is white exterior with these specific wheels, with this specific brake. Look at that, just look at that, how front that wheel is. Anyways, this specific brake, and of course the interior. Now let me show you guys what the interior looks like. First thing you do is unlock the vehicle. This pops out. Now remember guys, this is 2012, okay? We're in 2022, so this may be a little more normal now, but back in 2012 this was something to be wowed about. Now, this is the interior that I have on my car, the way it is specced. Completely white, black floor mats with the black AMG bezel on the floor mat, which we love. And this interior, let me tell you guys, does not feel dated at all. Look at this car with the gull-wing door. Like I said, you open that door is gonna turn heads no matter where you are. That being said, this is actually the first issue that I'm gonna talk about. Now, I love the car, I don't have a problem getting in it, but for passengers who are new to this type of experience, to the gull-wing experience, the AMG SLS is a little bit difficult to get into. And you'll notice that they put a metal piece right over here, and the reason that metal piece is there is, let me show you guys. So you try to get in this car, you're gonna sit this way and you're gonna get in, which is awkward. Now look where my leg goes automatically as I want to get in. It's gonna automatically go towards this. They thought of this, they put a piece of metal there, but still not the best onboarding experience for your passengers. So if your passengers are not car enthusiasts or have difficulty getting into low cars, the SLS is going to make it a little more difficult for them to get into the passenger seat. Lucky for me, I don't have any passengers who sit in this car with me. I usually drive alone. I enjoy driving alone. Driving for me is an experience, is something that I get a lot of joy out of, so I don't really mind it. I don't really even open up the passenger door that much, in all honesty. And that's how you shut it. That's it. That's how it's done. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you guys, of course, is the trunk. So let's get that trunk open so I can show you guys how much space you have inside. Now, this car, I don't think was meant to store a lot of stuff. Of course, you have I have the little AMG kit from the factory with all the accessories of the vehicle. But as you guys can see, there's really not too much room in there. Maybe good for like a weekend getaway, but definitely not convenient for if you're planning a road trip or something where you have to take large pieces of luggage. Now, another thing that is unique to my SLS is, of course, the license plate, land by, which is exactly what I do. I'm not a car reviewer, guys. I'm just doing this because I absolutely love this vehicle. But if you guys are into real estate, you guys definitely need to give me a subscribe to the channel. You guys are going to get my honest reviews on my cars, the cars that I own, which are primarily AMGs. And of course, you guys are going to get all the information on real estate. Now, on the driver's side, once again, the door is open, so we're going to go ahead and open it. And this is what the interior looks like from the driver's side. Pretty unique, very beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And I'm going to show you guys how you get into the driver's seat, which is a little uncomfortable, but once you get used to it, you're pretty much okay. Now, what helps you here is because you have the steering wheel, you can actually grab onto it. It makes it a little easier to get into the vehicle, which is awesome. Next thing we're gonna do is, of course, start the engine. I want you guys to hear that V8 for sure. Let's start her up. Beautiful. Now, of course, this is not a cold start because I have been driving the car for a little bit, but it sounds amazing. Now, the thing I did not expect in the SLS is from the C63, which has the same engine, or people think has the same engine, it is actually a different engine. The C63 engine and the SLS engine don't share that many components together, other than, I believe, the block and some major components. Everything inside, like the pistons, the rings, the crankshaft, even the exhaust note is a little different on the SLS. Okay, let me rev it so you guys can hear what it sounds like. I hope the camera picks it up as good as it really is. Sounds beautiful in my opinion. This is exactly why I love this car. Now, prior to this, I did have the AMG GTS, and you guys can definitely check that out in another video on my channel. I'll try to link it, but if I can't, you guys can definitely go through my channel and find the video on my review on the AMG GTS that I sold to buy the SLS. Now, the AMG GTS has a twin-turbo 4-liter engine, sounded beautiful, definitely a little more throatier. This has a little bit of a higher pitch, which I really enjoy more. All right, let's close the door and take the SLS on a cruise. Okay, we put it in D and off we go. Now, immediate things that you're gonna notice different than a modern car is the infotainment system is definitely dated. So that is another thing that a lot of people maybe will not share with you, but I am used to Apple CarPlay. Now, the infotainment system here is turned off just because it is quite dated, but I will turn it on so you guys can see what is going on here, and you guys will be able to see that this is quite a dated infotainment system. The screen here, everything is analog except for this little digital screen. This is actually not too bad. I actually enjoy the analog experience with the RPM. You got the red limiter, shifter gauge over there. It's pretty cool. I think it's nice. Steering commands are just enough. They're not too many commands, but they are just enough to where it is still drivable and enjoyable. Interface, all in all, I think it's pretty beautiful. The gear lever looks all right. Everything else looks good. And instead of a Sport Plus button, which you have in most modern cars, you have this AMG button, which takes the car and puts it in Sport Plus mode, which in my opinion is the only mode you should be driving in if you own this vehicle. I think Sport Plus mode is very enjoyable and is the only mode you should be driving in because it is just such a crisp drive. The RPMs hang in there for a little longer, the shifts are a little harder, and it just makes the driving experience of this vehicle, of this GT, so much more enjoyable. Now, that of course depends on what you're looking for. Somebody like me, I'm looking to constantly feel like I'm a race car driver all over the city. Not that I drive fast, but I like that feeling, right? That everything, that corners that I take, I feel, I enjoy the driving experience. And so for that reason, I consistently drive this car in Sport Plus mode. Now, a few things that I have noticed over the course of the ownership of this vehicle, which let me tell you about. I bought this car, it's a 2012 white on white. It had 4,000 miles when I bought it about 60 days ago. It has just over 5,000 miles on it today. And like I said, I'm going to continue to drive this vehicle every day because I just love this car. This was my dream car, and for that reason, I am going to drive it as much as I possibly can. I am not going to put it in the garage and let it sit and appreciate. Now, that's the other thing I wanted to tell you guys about appreciation. Yes, it's a good thing I thought about that. This car is going to continue to appreciate in value and is actually a very good investment, which is why I sold my GTS. By the way, when I sold my AMG GTS, I sold it for the same money I bought it for 3 years. So 3 years ago, or whenever it was that I bought my GTS, I bought it literally for the same money that I sold it. And that's just because the car market is just so crazy right now. It only made sense for me then. Beyond that, instead of paying a premium for a newer vehicle that I knew was going to depreciate, I wanted to pay a premium, but for a vehicle that's going to go up in value. And since I bought this car, it has significantly gone up in value. I want to say since I bought it just 60 days ago, the car has gone up at least another 10 to 15%. And I anticipate this car to become $1 million car one day. That's right, $1 million car. One day. Not right now, but sometime in the future, the SLS Gullwing, specifically the Gullwing, not the soft top, is going to be $1 million vehicle. And I think that's just something that is so crazy. Where we found an empty stretch of road, so let's accelerate and see what that feels like in this car. Ooh. Man, that felt good. And of course, you can hear the exhaust crackle and pop in 2012 when they built this car on the SLS in Sport Plus mode. That's another reason that I like driving this vehicle in Sport Plus. Let's take a moment and talk about braking in this vehicle. Now, although for its time the SLS probably had very advanced brakes and tires, I can tell you that the brakes definitely feel dated in comparison to the newer AMG models, specifically the AMG GTS, GTR, GTC, or GT in fact. This car's brakes definitely are a little more spongy. They are crisp, but more spongy than the new AMG model. So if you guys are like into tracking and you really want to track cars, I do not recommend the AMG SLS. I do recommend it definitely as a daily cruiser. You're going to absolutely enjoy this vehicle. But if you're more into tracking, then you probably want to look at the AMG GT models. In fact, those models are even crispier around the corners than the SLS. The SLS is great, it handles well, but you know, it is dated when it comes to that type of technology, and suspension has improved drastically, specifically for AMG since 2012 to 2022, where we are today. We're just cruising here in Sugar Land, Texas, where I live, and as you guys can clearly see, it is a very enjoyable experience. There's not too much sound from the outside. The vehicle is pretty quiet. You can tell that the build quality was definitely really good and high-end even when it was built in 2012. Now that's one thing that I like about these Mercedes GTs. They've all been super quiet. You know, you can really hear them on the outside. And mind you, we're in Sport Plus, so if I put the car in comfort, it's gonna get even more quiet as the downshifts now are less aggressive and the car is in a higher gear. So really nice, really beautiful drive, and actually it doesn't bounce around that much, so not that stiff on our Sugar Land roads, which is pretty nice. I like it. Let's get the SLS on the highway and give you guys my thoughts on what it's like driving at highway speeds. Now, once again, we do have the SLS in Sport Plus mode. We do have also the wing up. I don't know if you guys can see that in the rear view mirror, but we do have the wing up, so it's looking aggressive. We are on the highway, and you know, driving the SLS on the highway is an extremely pleasant experience. It's soft enough to where it's comfortable, yet if you wanted to change lanes aggressively, which I don't recommend you do, you could still do that without getting too much movement in the vehicle. So that's something that's definitely a plus when driving the SLS. Now, as you guys can see, we're in 7th gear. Like I told you guys, we are currently at 5,000 and change in miles, and you know, the car has been nothing but reliable. I mean, I've only driven it 1,000 miles, but you have to understand that it only had 4,000 miles on it, so I put a lot of mileage on this vehicle. The other thing I like when driving is that you can actually see the two vents on the hood. You're in a position to where they're clearly visible and they actually look pretty good while driving. You also notice this drop off on the hood right there in the center where it drops off, and that makes it a very pleasant view, honestly, looking forward. Now, as you guys can see, we are driving and cruising at highway speeds. We're at just barely a hair over 2,000 RPM, which is pretty low in my opinion. We're on the 7th speed. Very, very easy drive. A lot of fun to drive this car. Once again, on the highway, just having a good time. So it did just start to rain a little bit, and actually to prove to you guys that I really do daily drive this SLS and I really love daily driving the SLS, I am actually going to my barber to get a haircut, because I do have a podcast later on tonight and one later on tomorrow as well. Not my own podcast, I'm going to be on other people's podcasts, which I'm really excited about. I have my own coming up very soon once my office is built out, but this is going to be a fun experience. But of course, in order to have the fun, we need to go get a haircut. Now this is gonna be an hour or so for me, but thanks to video editing and Ace, my editor, this is just a second away for you guys. And here we are looking all fly back to the review. There is another important part of the SLS that I almost forgot to show you guys, but I didn't. And this is actually when you know you have kind of made it in life. When you have cup holders that are laid over in suede or Alcantara or whatever this material is, you know that this is an exclusive vehicle, and you know that there's not supposed to be any cups touching that. So that is actually something really classy that I thought Mercedes did, that they put suede on the cup holders, but as a matter of fact, you can't really use them as cup holders, which means essentially this car doesn't have cup holders because they're not usable. Because if you use them and you just get a little bit of spillage on them, guess what? You've just ruined a very expensive, I'm assuming, cup holder, and you don't want to do that. So, and I don't want to do that. And even though I drive the car every day, I avoid eating and drinking inside for two reasons. One of them is obviously the cup holder. The other one is the interior of this vehicle is completely white, so I definitely don't want to damage any of that while driving. Now, driving around town, this vehicle can definitely become uncomfortable in certain angles because your visibility, although good in like the suburbs where I live and generally drive the car, in the city sometimes you can get cramped up in like tight spaces and situations where you really don't want to be, and it can be difficult to look outside on both edges, just to make sure that you're not like really, you know, hitting or gonna curb something or whatever. So, you know, taking care of the wheels is very important when it comes to cars like these, because these wheels are literally very rare, very unique, and you want to make sure that you take care of them. But in tight spots, which we're not in right now, but we could very well get into within city limits, you have to be very careful while driving the car. Now, another thing that you have to be very careful about is exactly what we're going to go through. When you live in a city, things are not really, you know, smooth. So you are at an angle, you have to constantly be aware that the front is quite low, and so of course you have to maneuver accordingly. But that's something you get used to, and if you're used to driving low cars, it's definitely something that you are already aware of driving low vehicles. One other thing you will notice is that I have no sunroof. There's literally no sunroof or no light coming in from the top of the vehicle, and that's because, of course, of the gull wing doors. The gull wing doors are covered in Alcantara all the way, both the driver and passenger side, and of course the A-pillars as well. And you can't get glass here just because this is actually the door right above my head. So both doors open up, and this actually then is nothing. It's like emptiness, right, once the doors are open. And so for that reason, and I believe a lot of new McLarens have this feature as well, where the roof is actually a part of the door, especially with the 720s and the 765s and whatnot. But the thing is that they actually have these in glass, which makes it pretty cool in my opinion. Now, we are currently stuck in traffic because not this light, but the light after it is not working. And it was actually not working when I came to get my haircut, so I'm assuming they haven't fixed it. It's been an hour, and I'm assuming they still haven't fixed it even now, which is typical Houston style. But I can tell you that getting stuck in traffic in this car is absolutely not a problem. It's spacious enough to where everything is comfortable. My back is not going to hurt after a while. It's soft enough to where things, like I said, are comfortable once again. The seats, although a racing style, mean they have these side bolsters to hold you in and keep you kind of tucked in, are still just loose enough for you to be able to move around and still give you that level of comfort that you may not get in full-on modern racing seats for a long time. So you can definitely drive this car for a long time, for long periods of times, without having too many issues. And when I say issues, of course I mean you issues, not car issues. The car is fairly reliable. It's a Mercedes. I don't think anything's gonna go wrong with it anytime soon. I could be wrong, but I've had really good experiences with Mercedeses in my past. So I'm talking about you as a person. So if anybody ever considers, you know, long drives that you have to sit for a long time, I do reckon this car is super comfortable for that. So guys, that was my honest review on driving an SLS every day. This is my daily driver. I do plan on driving it a lot. You guys are gonna get to see it on the channel, but I thought I owed you guys a review. So this was my honest review on what I think it is like driving the SLS. Now, of course, it's a very enjoyable experience. I'm always smiling. I love driving this car. And like I said, you guys are gonna get to see much more of the SLS on the channel. Just like that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next video.